Support for Wider FM comes from Pedal Bicycles, now with 2 locations in downtown Kalamazoo and Portage. Pedal Bicycles has the right bike for every Kalamazoo rider, whether you're blazing the trails, cruising the streets, or just getting off the training wheels. To keep your ride running smooth, Pedal Bicycles offers multiple levels of repair services, anything from a quick tune-up to a complete overhaul. And to keep you safe and looking fly, Pedal Bicycles has all of the gear and apparel you'll need. To discover your spin within, head to 185 Romans Road in Portage, 611 West Michigan Avenue in downtown Kalamazoo, or pedalbicycle.com. Thanks, Pedal Bicycle, for supporting sustainable transportation, Buns of Steel, and Radio Evolution.
It's time for our weekly RSO Spotlight here on WIDR Kalamazoo.
Hi, I'm Jose Alexis Mejia.
And I'm Cesar Ortiz.
And we're the brothers of Sigma Lambda Beta International Fraternity Incorporated. We were founded here at Western Michigan University, April 3rd, 1988.
Our 4 pillars are brotherhood, scholarship, community service, and cultural awareness. Our mission statement is to nurture and further a dynamic, value-based environment which utilizes our historically Latino-based fraternity as a catalyst to better serve the needs and wants of all people.
And we strive for higher education. So if you want to contact us at wmubetas@gmail.com and Facebook and Instagram, WMUbetas. Thank you.
This has been our weekly RSO Spotlight here on WIDR Kalamazoo. For more Spotlight coverage, head to Western Herald or YBot Connects on Twitter. To find more information on how to spotlight your RSO, head to widrfm.org.
Hello, Wider listeners. How are all of you out there in radio land? It is once again that time of week. It is time for the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, a weekly radio show where we drop some truth bombs and call out the establishment on its BS. Now, of course, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may be. So, there's a couple of things we're going to be talking about on the show today later on. My dear friend Jessica Martin is going to be on to talk about the March Against Monsanto that she is organizing downtown this weekend. Full disclosure, I also am helping her out with that. I'm more of like the helper monkey. She's the mastermind. I'm just going around trying to, I'm random task, as it were, with my bowler hat and my tie, and that's, I don't know why I'm referencing, that's an obscure, well, no, not obscure, but a very random reference to a satirical character from the Austin Powers films. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and start talking about some of the big news this morning, and I will tell you this, I woke up today and I was overjoyed. I wasn't overjoyed at first. At first I was kind of groggy and I took a shower, and then my roommate told me the good news. And it was that Pipeline 5 I did that at the meeting too. Resolution, not revolution. Yeah. The Pipeline 5, the resolution to shut down Pipeline 5 passed by a 7-3 margin. Hooray indeed. I say that because I really wasn't expecting that. I'll tell you a little bit. I was there at the county commission, reporting on my capacity as a Hoodrat journalist, and also, spit my 2 cents to the county commission. And it didn't really look good. I didn't think any of the Republicans were going to flip. And I thought Stephanie Moore was going to vote it down. Fortunately, that did not end up being the case. And this is very good news. And, a lot of people will ask, so what, does this mean they're going to shut it down then? No, hold your brakes, Sparky. The resolution to shut Pipeline 5 down, it doesn't necessarily hold direct power over that pipeline. Our specific county is certainly not going to have the say on whether or not it actually does get shut down. However, we are part of a growing coalition of different counties, cities, and townships that are all passing these kind of solidarity resolutions expressing their dissent against, maintenance and rebuilding Pipeline 5, and that they would like it to be shut down. We've got a lot of big businesses on board too, like Bell's, a lot of other craft breweries, a lot of tourist businesses around the state, because and something that really hit home for me. We talk about how like the pipeline line 5 as it is now is in the Mackinac Straits, which is the worst possible place for a pipeline, primarily because the currents in that particular area where, Lake Michigan joins with Lake Erie. That particular area is prone to, crisscrossing currents, not to mention, so the dispersal of oil from a potential leak would go engulf pretty much like the complete top half of Lake Michigan, as well as excuse me, as well as Lake Erie. I'm sorry, Lake Huron. I was getting my lakes wrong. It's Lake Michigan and Lake Huron that connect at the Mackinac Bridge. Sorry, y'all. Sometimes I'm prone to stupid brain farts like that. So where Lake Michigan and Lake Huron meet, it's a place where currents crisscross, and it would effectively exacerbate any sort of leak. It would be very hard to control. When the expert was brought in, and I'll get her name here in just a sec. When she was brought in, she mentioned that they had only, under optimal conditions, and that was Stephanie Mabey. She's representing a nonprofit, the Kent County Water Conservation Board. Studied science over at U of M. Anyway, she said that about 30% would get cleaned up under optimal conditions. And that's optimal because the Coast Guard in particular does not have any plan in place for what to do during the winter, which traditionally there is ice coverage in that part of the lake from late November until April. So that's almost half the year where they would not have a set procedure to deal with getting under the ice and cleaning that oil up. So I wanted to share real quick a public comment from the county commission, and this is City Commissioner Stephanie Moore, or not, sorry, Shannon Sykes. Shannon Sykes speaking towards an issue that Stephanie Moore brought up on the commission. And I'm about to talk about that more in depth, but it was a legit, though somewhat troubling observation that I was afraid was kind of like going to be used as some sort of obfuscation or justification for voting no, because when Stephanie maybe was open to questions, she went into this line of questioning about why there's not more work done with NAACP and why they haven't reached out to communities of color. I think that is a definite problem with environmentalism. It does a really poor job at being intersectional along racial and cultural lines. But yeah, that was the concern, is that it was going to be used as this kind of justification for a no vote. So Shannon spoke during public comments, and she spoke to that directly. And I wanted to play that during the show. She also spoke about an incident that happened outside of the county commission, which I'll let her talk about that in her own words.
In favor of you guys voting tonight on the end rate resolution, as well as to vote in favor of shutting.
I'm sorry. That was my friend Eponine. I played the wrong file.
So passions are high tonight. Before I get to my line 5 comments, I do want to address something that was brought up earlier. I think a lot of folks here in this room, I think all of you up here are aware that some things happened outside. I do want to say, I think they've been blown out of proportion a little bit. I want to say that the reason that I stepped outside is because I witnessed Commissioner Moore being yelled at, and I did not believe that that was the most effective way to have a conversation with her. So I want to validate that. I want to say that, and I said it downstairs, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We can disagree, we can respect one another, and I still maintain my respect for Commissioner Moore and for all of the commission and for the administration. So I just want to put that out there and just, implore everybody to, use our calmer heads, if you will. But to line 5, and so I'm going to personalize this a little bit. I am probably going to out myself a bit to the organization that I'm here representing. I'm representing the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. I am currently the Southwest Michigan Regional Coordinator for MLCV, and so a lot of the work that I do here in this community is based on MLCV's priority issues. When I first considered working for MLCV, I struggled. Because to me, and I'm, many of you know, I'm a former Black Lives Matter activist. For me, I'm watching people gunned down in the streets on video, right? Snuff films on video. And so for me, hearing about environmental issues, it was like, but people are dying today, right? People are struggling today. That's a fact. But here's what I have come to learn, and this is why, to me, this is a bigger issue. This is not political, and it shouldn't be partisan. And just to be clear, there are Republicans and Democrats at the state level that support shutting down Line 5 because they know it's not safe. This is about access to water, clean water, and we have watched for years now what happens in places like Flint and Detroit when folks don't have access to water. The representative from Enbridge spoke about a lower supply of oil and how that would rise the cost. What do you think losing our Great Lakes would do to the cost of water? There are people who cannot afford water to drink in Detroit, Michigan right now. This has been going on for years. That will affect all of our communities, but the first communities it will affect are communities of color and low-income communities. And if anybody doesn't believe that, they're lying to themselves. We need our water. People depend on water to live. Another thing I want to note is absolutely this is an economic issue. I don't know if you all are aware, but one of the fastest growing economies in Michigan is green energy jobs. That's exciting. And that is where we should be moving, and that is how we should be training folks. That's where we should be finding folks jobs. And as a matter of fact, MLCV is in communication with the Northside Association for Community Development and Maddie Jordan Woods about how we bring those types of jobs to to our north side community. Right now, those conversations happened a month ago. And when we get the right representatives to pull that off and have a green jobs fair here, we will do that. Green energy is the future. Oil is on the way out, and frankly, it can't come fast enough because we need our water. Thank you.
So yeah, that was Shannon Sykes speaking out during Citizens' Time at the County Commission meeting last night. I wanted to go into that a little bit more and kind of bring a little bit more context into it. So when Stephanie Moore was talking to the Enbridge representative. Okay, you can understand where my bias is a little bit. Just Jason Mansham, who was basically there, invited by apparently Commissioner Gisler to speak on behalf of Enbridge as far as this resolution goes. And her main question to him, so the way Stephanie Moore worded it, she is a Democrat and a vice chair of the county commission. She said that her decision was likely going to be hinge on the employment status of 3 of her constituents that apparently called her, who are employees of Enbridge, and were concerned about what a shutdown Line 5 resolution would mean for their jobs. And Manchin kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit. He didn't get into very many specifics. And in general, watching his presentation as a whole, he didn't really get into many specifics either during the whole presentation. Keep in mind, Jason Mansham is not a scientist. He's not an expert in oil. He is literally, and when I believe it was Commissioner Quinn asked for his title, he said that he was, public relations. So he literally gets paid to come to county commissions and convince them that Enbridge is nice people. But is he an expert on like the actual engineering or science around what goes on in Enbridge? No. So, I mean, I found that kind of amusing and certainly affirming to my whole kind of political outlook on like the money controls a lot of our politics and a lot of the narrative that we hear. But yeah, that they would bring down basically just a literal like public relations guy in a suit. Found very interesting. And hold on just a sec. I will be right back. Have a special guest we'll be bringing on in just a moment. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. So we're going to table the Line 5 discussion real quick. I've got a very important guest on today to talk about something very important going on this weekend in downtown Kalamazoo. I don't know. Would you like to introduce yourself? I talked you up a little bit at the beginning of the show, but
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm Jessica Martin. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Local activist and the recently elected vice chair of the Young Democrats of Michigan, and hoping to make change on that front. And I'm here to discuss the March Against Monsanto on Saturday.
So, I know you've got kind of a personal history behind this that extends beyond this sort of season of resistance that we find ourselves in right now. So, could you tell us a little bit about like your involvement in? I know you've organized this march in previous years, and maybe tell the people at home what is Monsanto about? What is it about them that got you out there organizing people in the streets?
Well, it all ties into the fact that I have a rare genetic disorder, and what they do with their crops, with altering the DNA and pesticides being added into it, it creates me to be extremely sick. I am extremely sensitive to these things, as are other people. And I didn't realize all that's what was happening. I had been trying to change my diet, started eating vegetables, eating healthier, was still getting sick, still getting hospitalized, couldn't understand why. And I finally found a really good PA, and she was honest with me, and she said, where do you get your food? I said, well, the store. And she said, from what farm? And that's where I learned about Monsanto. And then she asked about the water, and I ended up having to buy a reverse osmosis filter, and found out that my lifestyle had to completely change into an expensive lifestyle that, as a lower income person, I can't afford. So I started to look into Monsanto and what they really were. And I found out that this is the company that basically bought out my hometown and helped bully out small farmers from Plainwell and the surrounding areas of Kalamazoo. And growing up, we were taught that these cornfields were gorgeous and it was part of the country, and to appreciate it and love it. And come to find out, the pesticides that were being sprayed on that in the 1990s, when I was growing up, next to the cornfield, the main water pollutant of the 1990s was glyphosate, and chemicals being sprayed on crops in Michigan. And the prime crops they were being sprayed on were corn, soy, and wheat. And Michigan's prime crop is corn. And I literally had a fence separating my house from a cornfield. And with recent discussions with my mother, she's remembering a few times we had to have our well get shut down and cleaned and scrubbed out, and we went without water. And researching, I found out that's why. And we got really sick during those times. We weren't compensated, we weren't cared for, and it's ultimately really harmed me more and caused detrimental health problems. And I know if it's doing it to me, that it's doing it to other people. And then I found out about their unethical business practices and how they threaten farmers, and they bully them, and they sue them, they take their livelihood. Even if their seed comes into an organic farmer's farm, they're able to take over that farm and control it because their seed just blew over. And if you ask me, that's wrong.
So just clarifying, this is a case where they did not willfully buy the seeds, but they just, through natural forces, blew over into their land.
Yes. And, the other issue we have with the spraying is a lot of people are getting sprayed. And I know a lot of people personally that have gotten sick from that spray. And again, Monsanto doesn't have to pay anything. And the answer to that, I'm sure everybody's wondering, why doesn't Monsanto have to pay? Why does Monsanto keep getting to do all this and we're aware of it?
Gee, let's find out, Jessica.
this is where I got a little more angry. Monsanto is not about feeding the world. Monsanto is about controlling the world. There's a huge difference. We were told when they first started these genetically modified crops that it was because they would become more nutritious to us, or more nutritional. And the fact is today it's not. It's not. And it's causing ecological harm. They have unethical science practices. They have unethical farming practices. And it's altering our health. And ultimately, it's forced upon the poor. We don't really get a choice because we're low income. You have to provide your family what you can provide your family. It's called survival. And a lot of people aren't aware that the rural areas are going through that. And I blame Monsanto. So.
Oh, yeah. So kind of bouncing off of that. So, there's a certain division in the left, I think, where you have what people imagine when they think of like GMOs, and so, yeah. But some people will go out of their way to actually defend Monsanto because they have this sort of like they position it as like, well, if you're anti-Monsanto, you're anti-science. So I was wondering, could you speak a little bit more to like, you talked a little bit about like unethical scientific practices. How does that tie into the fact that, perhaps it's they are not necessarily pro-science, but actually are, using it poorly or using it to
extorting
create
it,
these outcomes.
extorting it. Yeah. I think it should be noted before I start speaking on a scientific level. I have studied science. I've studied biology, and I've studied cellular biology, and I've studied molecular biology. I may not have degrees in these, but I studied them and I research them daily. So I would like to clarify that, as I have had some people try to discredit me because of it. So on the scientific level of what they do, they push the line and they cross the line of science, and what we say is just because we can does not mean we should. They test that a lot, and they keep that quiet. Bill Nye's show asked Monsanto, why does everybody hate you? And Monsanto gave him, the basic answer, and he took it. I'm kind of upset with that. People are scared of Monsanto, not just because GMOs, they think it's tarantula DNA being added in. It is other DNA being added into plants. That it's not plant DNA with plant DNA. That's genetic splicing, and there's a difference. Nature does that on its own, and that's fine. What they do is they start to add DNA from animals into our foods. They add hormones into our fruits. And they add these things that make them bigger and brighter, and they appeal to us more. It's a marketing technique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what Monsanto has done is they have turned this food into a whole marketing scheme. And they have convinced all of us that we need them, that we absolutely need them, and that we can't afford anything but them, and that we shouldn't be allowed to afford it. So they have this island that some of you have heard of, and I say this and people call me a conspiracy theorist until they actually research it, called Plum Island.
As we say on the show a lot, it's not a conspiracy theory if you have proof. But
yes, just go Google Plum, Plum Island. It's all you have to do. I'm not going to speak much more on it. I think you are all pretty capable. So we have been seeing strange things happening since GMOs came on the scene. But what really changed was in the 90s, during the Clinton administration.
Mm-hmm.
And might I add that Hillary Clinton is what we like to coin as the queen of Monsanto.
Mm-hmm. It's on a poster at home. I have like this boxing poster, like Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders, and one of her nicknames is Monsanto Mama. But yeah, but please continue.
Sorry, I gotta get back to my train of thought. So Monsanto is deeply rooted in our politics. And And during the 1990s, something happened to make it where we could start spraying our crops with something we shouldn't be. Something that was stopped during the 1980s, during the Reagan administration.
And I believe he wasn't really a huge leftist.
No, he was not.
Yeah.
But he loved the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they saw this opportunity to make more money with Monsanto, to boom into the planet. And that's what the Clinton administration did with Monsanto. And sorry, it's hard for me. I love my hometown even though I've left it. That's when I saw the dynamic of my hometown changing. That's when business people came in and started building up around a lake filled with garbage, pretty much. It's a landfill called Lake Doster. And families started leaving. They couldn't farm anymore. And Monsanto sued them, bullied them out, and a local family bought all of their land out and also helped bully them. That local family happens to be very close with my father's side of the family. So again, I'm not speaking out of my butt. I'll put it politely. I accidentally swore last time. I'm speaking from experience and from what I know. And Monsanto and what they do is just unethical all around. They don't communicate with the public for a reason. And they lobby and buy out politicians such as Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Debbie Stabenow, Fred Upton. Just because Debbie's voted the last 2 years on our side does not mean she's on our side. I'm just going to put it that way. She's pushed Monsanto for a long time, until recently when the public came out and called her out on not being an environmentalist for it, and called her out about the unethical practices that they do towards animals.
Yeah, she seems to be doing a lot of different triangulation these days. I know when we were both at the state convention, and she was very much trying to cozy up to the whole Bernie insurgency in a way I hadn't really seen before.
No, and it was not working.
No,
I just want to note that I'm very proud of us. I know that we're a thorn in some people's side, but I feel that we are supposed to be here. Monsanto is a giant thorn in my side and my community's side, and it actually really targets a community here. And that's why I really want to talk about it. It's a little difficult, being that I'm from Plainwell and I'm white, but I'm going to do my best. Monsanto targets certain people. They target the poor. The first people that they really started targeting were the uneducated white people of the rural countryside, so they could get their farms going. At that time, they started to target inner city black neighborhoods and schools. And they started pushing their genetically modified food and pesticide-sprayed food to these lower income areas.
And yeah, if I could, speak to that just briefly, as some of you know, I've mentioned this on the program before, but I grew up in the Edison neighborhood, which was, low income, very diverse neighborhood, mostly black, Latino, and well-spoken white trash like myself. And what a lot of people don't understand is when we talk about Monsanto being a food monopoly, that's no more true, that's more true than anywhere than in these inner city type neighborhoods where they don't have that access, they don't have that option. Edison, we were lucky enough we had the town and country, but even that didn't really carry organic options, and even I think even now they do carry a few things, but they're more expensive. And honestly, you're part of that mindset where you're on food stamps or you're struggling to keep the lights on. You're going to be thrifty and go with what is cheaper. And also, even fortunate enough to have a grocery store, most places are food deserts until Park Street Market opened up a couple years ago. North Side didn't have a grocery store. It depended on dollar stores and gas stations to get food.
Which I would like to note, the North Side, when I've done this march, this is my third time doing this march. There's a woman doing it before me. I cannot recall her name. She helped me with the last march. I do believe it starts with a K. I apologize. I do have some disorders. Remembering names is hard for me. The north side are the ones that really started the gardening trend and raising their own food. The north side started taking it into their own hands first. So I'd like to note that the north side started to find ways to survive, not only survive, but thrive and pull their community together and create a non-food desert area that was dependent of itself. And a store got put in there that's not organic, that doesn't push their products, that doesn't have their farming that they're doing around there in there. It has outsourced farming brought in. So I'm glad Park Street was put there, but we have another issue that we have to address is all these stores that are coming in here. You know, when are you going to start taking local farmers' food that are actually doing things right and helping our local economy? That would help the north side community so much if these stores would start allowing smaller farms to sell. But then we have the same issue of our government. And this is where Debbie Stabenow and Fred Upton worked together and made themselves look really good and created an anti-farming bill is what I call it. They call it a farming bill. This made it harder for small farmers and gardeners to be able to sell their products publicly. This caused a lot of gardens and farms to get shut down that were organic, and it causes them to have to pay about $5,000 more than what a big ag farmer would have to pay to get all their paperwork done and get everything lined up. And they have to have 5.5 acres to qualify as a small farm. And while I understand some of the acreage when it comes to animals, if it's just crops, I don't. And that applies to everything. So during this time, and this was recent, I should note that. This was not during the 90s. This was about 4 years ago now that they passed this bill. Yeah. And they went around farm-wide, statewide, to all the farms, dairy farms, animal farms. If you're sensitive, please stop listening. They slaughtered animals. And I'm an animal rights activist. They dumped out people's dairy right in front of them as they cried. They broke their eggs right in front of them as they cried, and this was our FDA. These were our government officials going statewide, and they did it here too. I had 4 of my friends get their farms shut down because of Debbie Stabenow and Fred Upton's bill that attacked organic farmers and small town life. We too, just like the north side, were finding our own way to survive. And our government stops it. And they are pushed by Monsanto. And it needs to be noted that these are the unethical practices that Monsanto pushes so that their crops and their food control our planet. They do not add nutrition. They have found, and you can go look this up on the newest study, it was mentioned on Bill Nye's show, they found we don't need GMO farming. That as long as we tend our farms better, our crops will be better. Yes, we'll lose some, but we won't lose our planet. And we won't have people being sick wondering what's going on with them. We won't have people getting more asthma and not being able to get inhalers because Big Pharmacy has upped the price so much. Which, by the way, Bayer is buying Monsanto.
Oh, I did hear about that
Yes.
a while ago, and that was
which is another part
very
of
alarming.
it's another bill that needs to explain about their unethical business practices. Sorry, I'm on a time restraint, so I'm trying to get whatever I can out as fast as possible. Now I lost my track.
Talking about Bayer and Monsanto
Okay,
becoming
so
a giant monopoly monstrosity.
We have a lovely woman named Nelly Fuentes Danacheo that's coming to speak at our rally. Nelly is the woman that stands for immigrants. If anything, I would put a cape on her, and she's the one coming in here teaching us. She's the one that's helping educate us and she inspires me.
Yeah, I'd follow up. If you're not in the activist scene here in Kalamazoo, this woman we're describing is basically like, she's very humble about it, but she's a superhero. So
Yes.
Yeah.
So what they do worldwide is they pollute. And their factories and palm oil is one of the biggest ones. They're destroying the Amazon in South America, and they've destroyed a lot in Central America, and they've attacked Mexico's corn. Mexico has gone non-GMO. Their corn is very sacred to them, and that's why they fight against Monsanto, because Monsanto's still trying to fight to take control of their corn, even though they're producing it just fine. So that creates sick people in third world countries that causes them to come here. And it started to create attention to that problem. I don't know if some of you remember seeing some of those commercials that were popping out. Go look up Food Inc., and this will help you learn more. It's a documentary. So Monsanto got another bill passed, Andy. And it makes it where they can sell every 2 years, the main owners of Monsanto still are shareholders, so they still profit from everything, and they profit pretty well. They sell to certain companies every 2 years. And what this bill does is it makes it where the new company cannot be sued for the previous pollution that has been caused in that area, and the old company cannot either. Most recently, Pfizer was the company that owned Monsanto. And they have recently left, and Bayer is now and works with them.
So it basically girds them from any sort of accountability.
Yes.
Yeah. And, especially like, the way you're talking about it, I think a lot of people have this idea that you can somehow, opt out. Like if you don't want Monsanto's food, you can't. But, the idea that, these issues are inextricably interlinked. The reason that a lot of organic products are more expensive is because Monsanto wants it that way. They want to saturate the market with their products and make it more difficult for those organic farmers to sell their vegetables, their fruits, so on and so forth. So just a little bit of personal history. When did you start doing this march here in Kalamazoo?
4 years ago, last year, I got really sick and I had some help. And my help emailed me about a month before the march. My help is a major activist. I'm going to keep her name silent. She fights for clean water. She fights for a lot, and she has a title that's under attack right now. She messaged me letting me know that Monsanto was bullying her. Hardcore. Not just her, because they bullied her before, and they've bullied me before. They were bullying her family. And I can assure you this is true. It's happened to me. It's happened to the other woman that led the march. It's happened to every other person that leads the march. They pay people to go around and take your flyers down. They pay people to lie, and they pay people to counter-protest you. So those of you who's been watching the action on Facebook, that's why I waited so long, and I really didn't want to put the location up until tomorrow. But last time we only had about 4 or 5 people show up. So this is going to be my 4th year really fighting against Monsanto, but my 3rd march. And doing it on my own, I have gotten it up to 150 to 200 people, and that's not just from Kalamazoo. They've come from all over, from the surrounding counties that I'm talking about, my home county, Allegan County. We had people from Indiana come up. We had people from Ohio drive over here. They're polluting our Great Lakes. They're polluting our soil. They are not safe. They do not do long-term studies like they say they do. In fact, they get bills passed to make it where their studies can get shorter and shorter and shorter. And they have these constituents that they've helped get put into office that are not educators. They don't have scientific backgrounds. They don't have anything. These people just put them in front of you and said, vote for this person, and they made themselves look really good. And now they're in here letting Monsanto take advantage of us. And we have the ability to stop it, is what I realized. Their sales have gone down. We've bullied Monsanto enough to the point where McDonald's is pulling out of the Amazon for palm oil. If you ask me, it's not soon enough, 2030. Amazon's going to be gone by then. But our efforts are pushing forward. And if you look around, I am a humble person, and I try not to boast too much, but I am very proud that since my marches have come here, the organic movement here has grown and become more available. And it's not just me. There are a whole group of people that are against this and pro-organic. And they're being ignored by their constituents. There are people that vowed to help with this march, to get my help with their marches, and have backed out because it's too political. It's too sensitive, because their constituents that they back Monsanto and take money from Monsanto. And I am here to announce that Kalamazoo for revolution, Michigan for revolution, and the Young Dems do not tolerate that. We are the revolution. We are. And I am not here to play nice with Monsanto, since Monsanto doesn't play nice with us. Monsanto plays games with our lives. And I don't think that's okay. It's psychologically sick that people think they have the right to do this. And I don't know about you, but that sets a whole nother fire in me when I think that somebody is literally purposefully manipulating a large population and causing them to be ill and kill our planet, finds it fun for money.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's part that really goes into the normalization that Monsanto pushes. This is that it's inherently look at it. It's been in just the last couple of decades where they've been able to consolidate the world's food supply, and most people either don't know that or you tell them that, and they don't really care. They don't understand the implications of it. And let me ask this. So this is a very different kind of year than in the previous years that you've done this march.
Yes.
And we've seen a lot of people come out of the woodwork who are not really either paying as much attention or active or out there as they used to be. So do you hope that, this kind of newly awakened populace that we have, this, quote unquote resistance, do you think that's an energy we can use to really shine a spotlight on Monsanto and other corporations like it?
I don't think I know. This year, when I saw what was happening after Bernie, I knew this was our shot. Regardless of who took presidency, I knew that this was our time, that the public is choosing to be more awake than ever. And not only are they choosing to be awake, they're choosing to fight. They're choosing to speak up. They're choosing to go to their county and city commission meetings and talk to these people who have royally screwed them over. And they've never done it. I am so sad that all this is happening, and I'm sick from it, literally. But this year has given me some hope. I have been doing this for a long, long time. And each year I am nervous of the turnout. And each year I tell myself, no matter how many people, you do this and you educate. I was raised a little bit different. I was raised in a military family in the country where you're taught sacrifice. My father was a first responder. My mother's a nurse. I was not taught selfishness. I was taught selflessness. And I was taught that you push and push and push for what's right. And eventually somebody will listen and you'll get more on your side. And that's what kept happening. And I know this year I'm going to see my march go from 150 people to more than that because of your help, Andy, and Eponine Gerard's help, and Nellie's help, and so many other people's help that I have not had. I need to emphasize that these last marches that I've done, I have had some help, but it's been scattered and not so organized because it hasn't been such a big movement. You know what I'm saying? Like, we haven't seen much protesting going around, so a lot of the people around here don't know how to organize. We don't know how to go reach out to people. I was literally going door to door, just knocking on people's doors, hoping that they'd listen to me and that they'd show up. And since, working with Michigan People's Campaign and learning from X-Teen and from you, I've learned how to organize better. I've learned how to reach out to people better, how to speak with people better. And it's created better relationships that are going to cause this rally to be even bigger. And the best thing about this that I really want to push, that's at the same time right next door to us, is the Children's Peace Festival. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to work out working together, but we are aware the events are happening both days. And I strongly urge you to go to this and bring the youth out and learn. My main purpose of why I do this is to educate. People say, well, Monsanto's going to stay. I don't get why you do this because we have to pay so much, blah, 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 blah. That's why I do this. So we don't have to pay so much anymore. Or we don't have to choose between our child's medication or healthy food. We don't have to choose between gasoline to get to work or healthy food. I don't think that that's a question. That's a right. It is a human right to have healthy food. You are literally telling all of us people that are lower income we are not human. that we do not deserve the same right as the rich. And that is the message that I'm getting from everybody that talks to me. Everybody that comes up to me and talks to me about this march goes, why are we doing it? The rich don't care. The rich are the one doing it. And we do it because we are winning. We do it because Monsanto is scared. And there is a certain man that has stepped up to buy out our city. That, Andy, I will let you cover that. That will help show how corrupt they are. And please, again, Google is a huge key.
Yeah. Well, what Jessica is referring to, and this is something that I bring up particularly when people ask me, well, what's the local aspect of this march? Because Monsanto's this global corporation. I think in addition to what Jessica spoke to so eloquently about how they have really been just ravaging our rural communities here. There's a certain political issue here in town where, and we spoke extensively about this a couple episodes ago with Chris Wamoff when we were talking a little bit about the Excellence Foundation. Mm-hmm. That was that yeah. Whenever you hear that like Orwellian doublespeak, it's something that sounds really good, like that probably means something snaky is going on. And this Excellence Foundation, a couple of problems with it, and there's this really great article you can look up on Medium why some people are looking a gift horse in the mouth. I'll put a link to that on the page, but the essential concerns is that this was a deal that was made essentially between people high up in our city government behind closed doors. It didn't even involve the direct involvement of our city commission in drafting this plan. It was to essentially be an alternative to raising a local income tax, and I do believe the window has closed on that because Michigan in particular is they have some very tough regulations about what local cities and municipalities, how they can tax and what they can do to raise their own revenue. So a lot of the proponents say it's kind of modeled similarly to the Kalamazoo Promise, but there's other stipulations. It's going to be on the city's shoulders to then subsequently raise $300 and eventually $500 million, which nobody's really explaining how that's going to happen. And also, again, this has been done without transparency, without a lot of involvement from the community. We have the Imagine Kalamazoo panels that are going out and basically asking the people of Kalamazoo, what would you like done with this money? But again, there's not really any sort of talk about how is that going to correlate into actionable stuff that's done with this money. And in particular, to round it all up, because I don't want to take away from too much of your time, Jessica. We've still got about, I think, 15 minutes or so. One of the main contributors to the Excellence Foundation, there's two of them. It's Bill Johnston and Bill Parfett.
Look him up,
Bill Parfett. He is the head of Rick Snyder's Political Action Committee and former board member of, drumroll, Monsanto.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, a very wealthy patron with of questionable moral character. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. The allegations of his assault on that young Shuang Zhang woman.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
If you ask some local officials, it's who he slept with, and it's none of our concern or business.
Our concern, yeah.
I think if you look him up, you will find out otherwise. As a survivor, I find it otherwise. And I am extremely disgusted by him and my city officials who have let him in here. Just saying.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I find that, the city thinks a lot of people here feel kind of safe. We're in like this progressive bubble, but, it's like you said, his connections to Rick Snyder, and, what their whole philosophy is that ended up causing the Flint water crisis. Do you think, do you have a palpable fear that, if this city does lurch further and further towards this privatization where we have basically political control of the city from just a handful of individuals, one of whom has this deep connection to Monsanto, do you fear that could exacerbate their influence in Kalamazoo and the surrounding areas?
Yes. And there's another major company that we should bring into this that he has huge ties to. MPI Research. For those of you who are not familiar with Monsanto, I am sure that if you're local, you're familiar with MPI Research and their unethical business, science, and animal practices. And he is all for that. So it's a little concerning to me that a man that has such unethical standards is donating so much money to our city. And the goals that he has and that he's brought up, it's not necessarily goals, it's just things he thinks would work. He doesn't say he needs to be a part of our city, but like you mentioned before, we're going to have to renegotiate this deal in a few years. So that's where I say yes. It may not be right now, which actually it is. We have two people that are fighting really hard to make sure that this money goes to what's right, that it doesn't go to what's wrong, that these people are already pretty unhappy that this is happening. But we are put in a rock and a tight space right now. We are. I understand that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be finding another way. I've had a lot of people attack me on that. I'm saying we need to find a more moral and ethical way that represents Kalamazoo truly. And I personally feel that there are a few constituents who have been wanting to push towards privatized government. If you look how our local jail has been run before, we've really had to push for change towards how that has been. And again, I'm speaking from experience, not personally being jailed, but I have had a lot of people in my life being a low income, as you've coined earlier, considered white trash human being. I've had a lot of people go through our jail systems. And Kalamazoo's is by far one of the worst public jail systems, if that's what you want to call it, nonprofit. I don't care.
Yeah, I have also heard that a lot of my friends have gone through the prison system here.
Yeah.
And I mean, it speaks exactly to those.
So it concerns me that we already have unethical practices happening with our local forces. It's been brought out. Fine, I'm not going to be shy. It has been brought out that Kalamazoo's police department is racist. And what was done when that study came out and it was proven that it was true?
At the time, that study, our police were more institutionally corrupt and racist than the Ferguson Police Department.
Yes. So what they did when that happened is they didn't look through their department and find who was like this. They didn't try to figure out who would, target a black person over a white person. They just told them not to do it or they'd get in trouble.
It's like, cut it out. Yeah.
Just stop it. Just like Hillary Clinton did to Wall Street. You just stop it.
You just stop it. Yeah, wag the finger
so
there.
That level concerns me a little bit. It's already hard in there. I've had people come out of there, especially from the women's prison, saying that it's one of the worst jails they've been to. The people are rude to them. When I went to pick up my soon-to-be ex-husband a couple of years ago, they made us wait 4 hours, and he was the only person in holding to leave. They were rude to him. He sat there for 2 hours in silence, didn't say anything to them, and finally he asked because he knew that we were waiting. And they made him wait another 2 hours because he asked.
And I believe, isn't your ex-husband of Latin American descent?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he does not check that on boxes or anything, but his middle name kind of gives that away. And if you look into his background, it's not hard to find that. He also has tattoos all over him, and he got in trouble as a kid. He wouldn't, narc on somebody. So at the age of 17, he was bullied by our local I do believe it was Kalamazoo. He was bullied to narc on somebody, and he wouldn't do it. So at the age of 17, instead of being charged as a minor, he was charged as an adult and given felonies.
So moving to a little positive. let's move to a little positive note.
Yeah.
So what? We talked a little bit about
that's just my concern about privatization of our government. That's why I believe it'll happen. We are already partially there in my mind.
Oh yeah. And if you come to the rally, you'll hear me speak to this a little bit more. But when we talk about privatization, this part of this has been a 40-year plan that the conservative constituency has been following, that corporate America has been charting out in a very deliberate fashion, and we're seeing it happen in our backyard in a very concrete way. So I did want to ask, we talked a little bit about alternatives, and there's again, like the gardens on the north side. I've noticed those popping up in recent years over in Edison, where I used to live. Vine. What are some of the best local resources or places people can go to find food and products that do not have the Monsanto's tentacles in them?
Well, Andy, thank you for asking, because that is another huge part of my march. I've discovered when you tell people you can't do this, they want to know what you can do. So you can afford People's Food Co-op. They do a $10 a month membership fee that you can come in, and that's very local and accessible. And they will be there to talk about that and what they do. The local farmers market, actually, there are a lot of organic stands that come through later on when more crops come in, and they accept EBT. A lot more organic foods are being provided at places like Meijer, so the people that don't like to go to multiple stores, I understand you've got kids. So Meijer's offering more organics. Earth Fare is here. So Walls is here. Then there's the little shops around here, such as the Victorian Bakery, who's going to come and help us out on Saturday. Maria is amazing. She's one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. And that is down on Crosstown. And then there's even the Organic Food Gypsy. She's a food truck. You can find her anywhere. She's extremely affordable, and she's extremely kind. So just to let you know, these people that are running these know that low-income people need this food and deserve it also. And then there's Fourth Coast, and there's Black Owl Cafe, Kalamazoo Coffee. There are options out there. And they don't just advertise it very well like Monsanto does. So the other options we have are Tabitha Farms. That's over by Reed Street. That's an access to the south side for food. She actually has a food stand during the summer where she gives out free food.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yep. Yeah. And then there's Turtle Tree Farms. They've been coming around. They were actually at the No Ban, No Wall rally. They were the ones handing out the gluten-free organic peanut butter cookies that melted in your mouth and were just amazing. So that should help answer the question of if this food tastes good. If their businesses are still functioning, their food tastes good. It tastes great. And then as far as meat goes, I wanted to touch on meat. Not because I'm vegetarian, but because of a certain representative in the area that advertises that he offers organic meat, and he doesn't.
What?
He does offer free range.
Okay.
I met him at the Michigan Democratic Party state convention. I'm missing a letter in there. I know I am. And we shook hands and we were talking. He pretty much laughed at my education. And this is Representative Ludwig. And laughed at my experiences. And he has free-range cows. He has cows that are not hormone-induced. I will admit all of that. That is wonderful. That's, you've got stuff covered. But he sprays his grass with glyphosate. Glyphosate. And another thing that Monsanto does is they send people around, just like Enbridge did yesterday to us, to lie to you that this is okay as long as it's not a part of Roundup. I don't know if a lot of you have realized that there have been, Lowe's doesn't sell Roundup-ready plants anymore. They don't sell Roundup anymore. That's thanks to the March Against Monsanto. This is a worldwide march. So now I lost my train of thought again. I'm sorry.
Well, you said, like, and they've been banned, I believe, in several countries.
Mexico is banning them. Russia has banned them. China has banned them. A lot of smaller countries. My heritage right now is trying to ban them, and they may have succeeded, and that would be Ireland. And then Germany is banning them. France is trying to ban them. And if you notice a connection with all three of these people, they're trying to leave the what? European Union.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Queen is not leaving Monsanto.
Yep. Oh, and that's really important for people to understand, I think, because if you're looking for some sort of institutional proof that what me and Jessica are talking about on the program today is valid, go ask France, go ask Germany, go ask Mexico. They've come to the same conclusions, and they've instituted nationwide bans on the products that this company, this multinational food conglomerate, offers. So,
and on top of that, I would like to mention on the science practice, it's not Monsanto that's the science practice, it's biotech that is the science practice. And if you've been watching Mr. Trump lately, he wants to get rid of our EPA and put who in charge? Biotech.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that's where those unethical science practices really occur. But Monsanto is the main corporation that has their hands tied in with biotech that biotech benefits from, aside from big pharmacy. So.
All right. Well, it's about 6:09. So I guess, do you want to just tell people like the when and the where and the what?
When is going to be May 20th, 11 a.m. to 2. March Against Monsanto. We are going to have music. We're going to have some yoga demonstrations. We're going to have some holistic oils for you to check out. We're going to have food. This is all about uniting our community and promoting a healthier life because so many of you actually want it. I'm trying to help bring that to you. And please come join us. We are going to be marching from the UCC, First Congressional Church. There's two different names for it. It's right across from the Bronson Park. We'll have signs out. We'll be marching from there to the People's Food Co-op. We will have 2 nurses on hand. We will have reverse osmosis water offered. You will not have to drink this nasty, non-filtered city water that causes so many people to be sick. That will be provided by my family. So we have so much for you to come and enjoy and to meet people and get educated and take it out there and educate people and really, truly make Kalamazoo be the progressive city that it is, because I'm starting to feel that it's going to be the people that have to keep that message to Michigan and keep this true. Like you said, there's been some, what I would consider snaky moves with our government and this Excellence Foundation. And I have been speaking with a lot of constituents lately, and there are a lot of constituents that feel like their voices aren't being heard.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And a lot of people who are unaware that these things are going on. They do not know about Monsanto's local impact. They don't know about the problems with the foundation.
Right. So I don't want you to hate all of your constituents. That's kind of been brought up to me, that I'm too hard on some of these constituents and that I don't thank them. There are constituents out there. Mr. Cooney, if you're listening, thank you. We know what you're doing. Tracy Hall, Wartleman, Quinn, Rogers. God, who else voted last night?
Actually, I have a list right in front of me. I was gonna give.
I want to thank them too, because these are also the people that are fighting for animal rights. They're fighting for environmental rights, and they need the spotlight.
Oh yeah,
so. And they've. While they will, some of these people will be coming to the march. They won't be speaking, but they will be coming to the march to show the support. I have not asked them to speak, to be honest. I know that this is a sensitive subject, and it has caused a lot of people to lose their seats when they speak out against them, especially in this delicate situation. And with having those people in there, I want to keep them in there. So,
and
anybody's welcome as long as you don't cause a problem.
Yeah, and I really want to thank you for what you've been doing. Especially when. A lot of protests, we're talking about some issue, even like Fred Upton, the worst thing he'll do to you is not show up. But when you take on these corporations and you call out what they're doing in their backyard, they will come after you. They'll go at you. They have. I know that. And I really want to thank you for having the courage to speak truth to power even when it pushes back a little bit, Jessica. And thank you for being out there and organizing every year, trying to inform the population about what's been going on. And I hope this year we can really wake a lot of people up.
I want to end this on a very a good note. My activism, it's been hard and it is scary. And yes, I have been bullied. But my community surrounds me, and we have made some positive influence. And that's what this is all about. I too am scared. I too am angry. And I too struggled with finding how to appropriately handle these emotions without harming my fellow citizens and myself more. You can imagine how extreme my mind went when I found out that Monsanto caused my life to be basically cut in half. So I want all of you, if you're coming tomorrow, I want you to learn this lesson for the rest of this activism.
Saturday.
Yes, Saturday. Sorry, see, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Positivity is here, and you need to wake up and take that fear and that anger and that frustration and turn it into something positive. We are all able to, and what that positive is coming together and standing up against these corporations and standing up against these constituents and saying enough is enough and pushing for a better future.
Politicians.
Politicians.
Yeah.
Sorry, I am really tired. I will admit, I have been pushing myself, and my next week is going to be a week off, so please refrain from contacting me after Saturday for about a week.
Yeah, for those who know, Jessica, I think if it were a job, it would probably be like somewhere between 80 to 120 hours a week.
I pay with my health. I don't get paid.
Yeah. I rack up some similar numbers.
We all do,
quite.
and I just want to thank I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I've come out like I say I'm the only one. I'm not the only one, and I want a message sent to my activists out there, because I'm seeing a thing on Facebook and sitting right next to me. You all need rest just as much as I do. You all need personal care just as much as I do, and I'm seeing you get tired. So please rest.
Mm-hmm. Please do. I've got a lot of experience. Last year, when I was in the fires of the political revolution, there were weeks where I got like 2 hours, 1 hour, maybe like a couple days without sleep, and I had to. By the time I actually did take some time off, I went down to visit Taos in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. I had a anxiety attack because I forgot how to take a break. Like, I literally didn't know what to do with myself. It was so that's very serious for anybody. Just advice from two people who really put in a lot of hours doing this stuff. We all want you to get involved, but don't tax yourself too much. Mm-mm. And if you haven't gotten involved too much in the struggle yet, please do, because we could use some time off.
I'm sorry, I keep saying it. One last thing that got back to me today. I have contacted Camp Promise in Flint, and they are sending me information of donations that they need and what they need. They'll be having a table set up there. I don't know about a rep, but there's environmental stuff all over the place. We're going to have people talking about oil. We're going to have all sorts of stuff, but really, Camp Promise needs your help. So if you come here, Yep, I'm really excited that they got back to me today. So, all right.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on, Jessica. We really appreciate you coming on, letting my listeners know what's going on this weekend. And looking forward to the march. There's going to be some great speakers. Jessica, Chris Umba, Nelly Fuentes, Eponine Gerard, who is a scientist also running for Congress. And me. Yeah, I'm going to be spitting some truth bombs out in public, not just in front of a microphone for a change. So, again, that'll be Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. down at the First Congressional Church on the corner of Park Street in Michigan, and we will be right back. We're going to take a quick little break. Thank you for listening. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo.
listening to Wider Kalamazoo.
Great Scott!
89.1 FM, Radio Evolution. Wider FM is proud to be supported by the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. The Kalamazoo Community Foundation is a non-profit organization that takes donations, invests them, and uses the money to fund programs for the betterment of the Kalamazoo community. If you are interested in donation or looking for more info, you can go to kalfound.org.
It's time for our weekly RSO Spotlight here on WIDR Kalamazoo.
Hi, I'm Jose Alexis Mejia.
And I'm Cesar Ortiz.
And we're the brothers of Sigma Lambda Beta International Fraternity Incorporated. We were founded here at Western Michigan University, April 3rd, 1988.
Our 4 pillars are brotherhood, scholarship, community service, and cultural awareness. Our mission statement is to nurture and further a dynamic, value-based environment which utilizes our historically Latino-based fraternity as a catalyst to better serve the needs and wants of all people.
And we strive for higher education. So if you want to contact us at wmubetas@gmail.com and Facebook and Instagram, WMUbetas. Thank you.
This has been our weekly RSO Spotlight here on WIDR Kalamazoo. For more Spotlight coverage, head to Western Herald or YBot Connects on Twitter. To find more information on how to spotlight your RSO, head to widrfm.org.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will be right back. I'm going to go use the little revolutionaries room. Go seize the P of production. That was a terrible pun. That was awful. Maybe I need to get some sleep too. Goodness. All right. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo.
Is lack of summer green bringing you down? Finch Greenhouse, located in Wood Hall on WMU's campus, might be the perfect thing for you. With hours Monday through Thursday from 9:30 to 3:30 p.m. and on Friday until 1:30, this space will bring you to a time before urbanization. Located inside Wood Hall, the space is open to the public with an extensive and varied plant collection with a wide range of diversity from orchids to succulents and many more. A friendly reminder from Wider to enjoy life.
This is an open slot in the Wider Clock and could be filled with an underwriting announcement for your local Kalamazoo business. For more information, please visit widerfm.org and head to the support page.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. You are listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So, I want to leave now, maybe like some finishing thoughts on the whole Line 5 situation. So, wanted to give a shout out to all the folks who voted yes. That was Stephanie Moore, Kevin Wertelman, Tracy Hall, Michael Seals, Quinn, Rogers, Turnier. People who voted no were Sugars, Kendall, and McGraw. And Commissioner Gisler was not at the meeting, although he is the one who invited the Enbridge representative to speak. So I would assume he probably would have voted no. Particular shout out to the Republicans on the commission who decided not to. I was trying to track down some audio. So I left before the actual vote. It was around 8:30, public comments. I had some activist homework to do at home. But the Republicans turning on Line 5 and voting yes, that was a real surprise to me. It's what I hoped would happen, but I just want to give them a special thank you for going across partisan lines to make a good common sense decision, you know? And I believe I can't remember what one of the conservatives spoke to it and said that, you know, it was had a lot to do with be a more financially conservative thing to shut it down. So I also wanted to speak a little bit towards what happened with Stephanie Moore last night. So I responded actually mostly to her in the citizens discussion panel. And for those of you who know, Stephanie Moore, she represents a lot of like the downtown Kalamazoo area, the north side. So a lot of, like disaffected, racially diverse or, majority minority populations, kind of like where I grew up. And she brought up the prospect of those three constituents, concerned about their jobs. It's a really hard decision. And I said this when I was speaking during Citizens Time, is, when these corporations bring, employment or some sort of financial benefit to a community that is already, in enduring financial hardship, it is hard to take a position when you're kind of between two places, your constituents and the overall issues involving clean water in the Great Lakes and climate change overall. I want to give her my profound thanks for making the right decision. She, whichever it was, she made a very large point. She was very critical of the Line 5 organizers, and I guess their overall attitude. Honestly, I think that has a lot to do with cultural differences. Environmental activists by their nature are very abrasive and aggressive to a point. And she was made a point during the commission to talk about rudeness and behavior. She made some points about, she said racism and sexism, which I don't know if she said dealing with racism and sexism has been very difficult lately, and I don't know if that was just talking about the overall cultural atmosphere or to the protesters specifically. Although that was something that kind of disconcerted me, was earlier in the evening I thought she was trying to paint environmentalism as a white liberal issue. But, there's a more nuanced critique that comes out of that, and I think she made a very good point that a lot of environmental groups do not do enough intersectional work with communities of color, especially when we consider the fact that, and this is something Stephanie went on to discuss herself when she was talking about why she voted yes on the resolution, that, poor communities of color are always the ones who usually have the target on their head when it comes to corporations like Enbridge, these privatization politicians like Rick Snyder, what happened in Flint. So that is a legitimate criticism, though, and I think we all need to understand that. I will say, in the defense of the environmental movement overall, I think there's been a large pivot in the last year since not only Standing Rock, but the Flint water crisis, where they started realizing those intersectional issues, which have both gotten environmentalists to think about racism and people of color to think about environmentalism. So I would say, I think I'm a little bit more hopeful, I guess. I think things are on the right track. And furthermore, I'd say to Stephanie Moore, I understand that you felt a little insulted by kind of the tenor of the protesters, but honestly, it's part of being an elected official. And granted, the county commissioners, this is all very new to them because this kind of public pressure wasn't a regular occurrence until quite recently. But that's something that you just got to have in your toolkit. If you're going to be an elected official, you're going to come up to activists, people who are abrasive. Thus far it's mostly been the left, but you find an issue that the right really cares about, I'm sure they'll show up to the county commission meeting too. Granted, the left has more of a tradition with outright protest, but that's part of your job. I believe that I live on in the Vine neighborhood. I believe that's just on the edge of her district. But as one of her constituents, I'm just like, that's what you gotta do. You gotta deal with your constituents, and sometimes they're passionate. They're upset. That's what you gotta do. There's anger and there's passion, and I wasn't there outside to see what happened between her and some of the protesters out there. But I understand why people get a little fired up about this. We're talking about human rights. We're talking about drinkable water. We're talking about future of the human race, if you really want to extrapolate it to the whole climate issue. So that's part of it. And Stephanie kind of tried to pivot and say that this was a decision. She said she's a very stubborn woman, and kind of making the insinuation that this was going to be her decision all along. If so, kudos to her. If there was a public pressure element to it, which I think there might have been, kudos to all of the people who worked on Line 5. on organizing around that issue, because we certainly wouldn't have gotten them to pass the resolution if it hadn't been for people power, for people coming to those commission meetings and filling the citizen comment portion. Like, I think like last couple of meetings, it's been 2 hours of citizen comments about Line 5. So public pressure works, everyone. I tell you, I said it before, I'll say it again. It does, it do. All right. So, I was considering talking next about the whole Seth Rich thing. For those of you who don't know, this is an issue, goes back to the primary. There is a DNC staffer died under very kind of dubious and mysterious circumstances. The police officials said it was a botched robbery, but nothing was stolen from him. And I wanted to touch real quick on, because this was covered by a Fox News affiliate initially, Fox News out of Washington, D.C. And I wanted to make a point of saying that so Fox puts up this news story, and what it said, and I'll read a little bit from it. Hold on just a sec. Okay. This is from Fox 5 in Washington. Family's private investigator. There is evidence Seth Rich had contact with WikiLeaks prior to death. This is May 16th. I'll just read an excerpt from it. Rod Wheeler, a private investigator hired by the Rich family, suggests there is tangible evidence on Rich's laptop that confirms he was communicating with WikiLeaks prior to his death. Wheeler's services were offered to the family and paid for by a third party, according to a statement issued by the Rich family Tuesday, which also includes that the private investigator who spoke to press was offered to the Rich family and paid for by a third party, and contractually was barred from speaking to press or anyone outside of law enforcement or the family unless explicitly authorized by the family. And this actually contradicts a later statement from the family that said that they were not comfortable with him coming out and making this insinuation, or even the fact that there's this kind of quarterbacking or theorizing around who murdered their son. However, going even more than that, further than that, the family spokesperson for Seth Rich's family is Brad Bauman, who is from a public relations firm used by the Democrats to deal with crisis management. So, where am I going here? Am I trying to weave some narrative here that Seth Rich was the one who gave the WikiLeaks, gave the DNC emails to WikiLeaks? I'll let you know, ladies and gentlemen, you be the judge of that. I will say there's also some other strange kind of corroborating thing. WikiLeaks has offered cash rewards about the information regarding Seth Rich's death. And from the article published by Fox 5, Wheeler said, I have a source inside the police department that has looked at me straight in the eye and said, Rod, we were told to stand down on this case and I can't share any information with you. Now, I was kind of torn about talking about this on the show. This was it was a big bombshell in a lot of the progressive news circle, alternative media outlets, progressive news outlets that I have relationships with and talk to on a regular basis. Even they, were obviously with an air of caution. This is not based on, there's no concrete evidence yet. There's just these words from this private investigator. What I wanted to talk about, though, is also on the same day. So Fox drops this news story right as there's very important stuff going on with the whole Russiagate situation. Now, y'all know I've been very critical of the whole Russiagate situation, but it speaks to something that fundamentally bothers me about the way that media journalism works in this country nowadays, where you have politically biased media. So MSNBC is, represents the left. Fox represents the right. News in this country used to make an attempt, at least, to be as nonpartisan as possible. But now you have dueling narratives. And the idea is that if you're a Republican, this is your reality. If you're a Democrat, this is your reality. And it's a huge disservice to the American people. And I say that because, it turns it into a binary choice. You either believe the Russian narrative or you believe that Seth Rich gave, the DNC leaks to WikiLeaks and that he was somehow assassinated. That's like what you're supposed to believe if you're on the right. Although I have a lot of people on the left who think that might have been the case. A lot of people on the left think that Russia hacked the election, that Trump has ties to Russia. A lot of people on the right vehemently deny that, think it's all hokum and made up. The problem when you have this binary choice, and when the media is set up in such a way that your reality is based on your political views, it makes it very hard to ferret out what the actual truth is. And, my personal opinion, I think there's a kernel of truth in both of these situations. I think it's very suspicious what happened to Seth Rich. And the mitigating circumstances of why does WikiLeaks have a vested interest in Seth Rich and finding out who his murderer was? And a lot of people will stop and say, well, if Seth Rich was the source, why didn't WikiLeaks just say so? And if you come at me with that line of argument, I will say, are you a child? Do you know how journalism works? Because you're supposed to protect your sources and you're supposed to not reveal them. And whether you love or hate WikiLeaks, they are very procedural when it comes to that stuff. They do not reveal their sources, and they are almost clinically precise when it comes to following those sorts of journalistic axioms. Again, even though I've had some doubts as far as legit actual evidence of, Russia either being responsible for the DNC leaks or tampering with our election, Trump definitely has ties to Russia. Especially like Russian businesses. There has been evidence that he has ties to the Russian mafia. Whether or not he has Putin on speed dial, that's a good question. Although he's certainly got himself into a very friendly relationship with the Russian government. So I think it's it's a conflict of interest type situation where he has specific interests with the Russian government, the Russian businesses, but the degree to which there was collusion to help him win the election is based on a lot of circumstantial evidence and a lot of evidence that we haven't seen. And again, Seth Rich is also based on a lot of circumstantial evidence, but I think it's very interesting how one is looked at as more authentic than the other, because the circumstantial evidence with Seth Rich is pretty compelling, and so is the circumstantial evidence with Russia, but one's treated like a conspiracy theory, and one is treated like the next Watergate. So, there's my thoughts on that. And luckily, there are certain outlets out there that do try to, come from a more nonpartisan standpoint. I would say, The Intercept is one. Contrary to what a lot of people on the left think, WikiLeaks is still very much nonpartisan. Because if you look at their overall history, they put out a lot of stuff during the election that made Hillary Clinton and her campaign look bad. But they've done the same to George Bush. They've released leaks on Russia, on Marine Le Pen, on France, on our intelligence agencies during various administrations. So, our ability to ferret out the truth on either of these issues, I would say go to a source that doesn't have a horse in the race. Go to a source that is not does not have a agenda concurrent with a political party in the United States. And I say that specifically because, and you know what, I'll admit this on air, I like RT. I like a lot of their shows, specific shows, particularly, Redacted Tonight and Chris Hedges on Contact. I've watched a couple of their other programs off and on. And that's a situation where even they have an agenda. I mean, it's right in the name, RT, Russia Today. But at the same time, they hire American journalists, and their basic rule is we're not going to censor you, tell you what you can and cannot say. So that's a funny situation where you get a lot of truth from RT, but the reason that they put those people on is because they want to make the American government look bad, which, frankly, a lot of people will hammer on me for, how can you watch it? It's Russian propaganda, it's like, well, if it's true, then I don't care if it's, necessarily propaganda or not. And especially like shows like On Contact or Redacted Tonight. This is speaking to a lot of things that I have been cognizant of and that I have done research on and had similar discussions and debates on for many, many years before I even started watching their shows. So if there's that whole insinuation from that intelligence report that, RT's warped the minds of all these leftists and they're not voting for it. All of those people, it's complete reverse. Those people are drawn to that programming. The programming did not draw them to go further to the radical left. It's a platform for American truth tellers who can't get a job on the mainstream media because they tell the truth. And that makes America look bad. And if that is part of a Russian agenda, then that's what it is. Imagine there's some guy in Siberia who's like, we have to find a bunch of journalists to talk about how the atrocities the American government is doing. Easiest job in Siberia. Okay, so talked about that for a little bit, and again, not any conclusion one way or the other, but I think it was important to bring it up. This is out there in the ether, and there's been some movement on the story. I don't know what happened to Seth Rich, and I hope we find out. Again, I only bring it up because the burden of proof on that, or the ability of proof on that, is parallel to evidence of direct Russian collusion in the election. Based on a lot of circumstantial evidence, we have not seen any hard data yet. So, just trying to be a little bit more objective than the mainstream media, whether they're coming from the left or the right. So, want to end with a quick shout out to some people out in Pennsylvania. For those of y'all don't know this, last year in April, I did the Democracy Spring March. That was a march from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. to protest against the corrupting influence of money in politics and voter suppression. And it really changed my life in a very profound way. I met a lot of very incredible friends there, colleagues that I still work with to this day. Not as much as during the election. I've really hunkered down and focused more on local and community politics. But these guys are doing some really great work. This is an article by Adam Eichen, who's also a fabulous, great friend of mine, recently published a book with Francis Moore, which talks a bit about Democracy Spring, actually. I want to read a little bit from his article. This is from the Moyers and Company website, and it's called Different Kind of Backlash, on the road from Philadelphia to Harrisburg with a bipartisan group of reformers. On the surface, it looked like another indication of a backlash against Trump. Approximately 80 people gathered in the pouring rain near Philadelphia City Hall Saturday, marking the first day of the March on Harrisburg. A roster of speakers standing under a tent in Thomas Paine Plaza emphatically proclaimed that this is a do-or-die moment for our nation. Unless we act now, our democracy, the fundamental lifeblood of our political system, may no longer exist. Approximately 40 attendees soon left the plaza to start an arduous march all the way to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, state capital, a distance of 100 miles. The torrential downpour quickly dampened their clothes, but not their spirits. It will take 9 days to get there, and when they do, they will make an ultimatum to the state's legislature. Pass 3 fundamental, much-needed democracy reforms: automatic voter registration, gerrymandering reform, and a gift ban for legislators, or they will risk arrest in front of the State House. The march has been a year in the making, well before Donald Trump took office. March on Harrisburg organizer Michael Polak began planning this event on last year's Democracy Spring March from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. Inspired by the sense of community and perseverance that formed during the event, the March on Harrisburg replicates Democracy Spring's general model: a long march culminating in civil disobedience, a marker of sacrifice and drama to elevate democracy issues on the national, or in this case, state level. Kyle Moore, logistical coordinator, explained as much. Our duty is not to focus on the left or the right, but rather to build grassroots power for those at the bottom in order to challenge the political corruption at the top. And goes on to say, the state legislature is controlled by a sizable majority of Republicans. The governor is the Democrat. To get a bill through the State House in the near future, both parties have to be pressured. And as many organizers have been quick to note, Republicans, not Democrats, are the ones who introduced the gift ban, and there is bipartisan introduction of gerrymandering reform. Let that sink in. Democracy reformers, including a number of anti-Trump and pro-Bernie Sanders activists, are walking across Pennsylvania to raise awareness of the efforts of Republican legislators. Whether conservative or liberal, Americans prize their heritage of one person, one vote, explained Rachel Murphy, chair of the March's Art Committee. Politics in Pennsylvania violates this core principle, and these common sense reforms would go a long way towards restoring citizens' voice in our democracy. They should not be controversial. And I want to read from this quote. A few months ago, I joined March on Harrisburg as a consultant for their website. I stayed involved because I found March on Harrisburg's approach compelling. I was totally energized after my first citizen lobbying day. A lot of people say they don't have time to do something like this, and I might have said the same thing in the past. But once you start doing it, the time makes itself available, said Sean Libber, March on Harrisburg's Director of Website Development and Operations. Seeing everyone in March today was simply amazing. I am so proud of everyone who came out today to fight the conditions for democracy. For many, Trump is a threat, but also merely a symptom of our broken democracy. Restoring trust and proper representation in our government is a prerequisite of future activism. All of my friends out there marching on Harrisburg, I love all of y'all. And I think it's important to realize, efforts like this really do highlight some of these fundamental issues that have been going on our democracy long before Trump ever showed up. And while it is important to resist Trump and his agenda in the context of modern activism, it is far more important to attack that corruption within our government that allowed somebody like Trump to ascend to presidency. And those guys, those girls, those non-gender determinist folks, all of them marching out there, they're marching for all of us. And I just wanted to give all of you a shout out from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I wish I could be out there with you, but I'm helping organize a lot of stuff out here in Kalamazoo. So anyway, I want to thank all y'all for joining the program today. We are here every week from Wednesday from 5 o'clock to 7. And, you ever have an issue, a protest, an event coming up you want to talk about, please get a hold of me, hoodratstrategist@gmail.com. Also wanted to shout out a couple of different things going on in town this weekend. There is the Monsanto March at Kalamazoo's 1st Congressional UCC. That's on the corner of Michigan and Park Street. That's going to be at 11 a.m. on Saturday. The March Against Monsanto. Also going on at noon at Bronxton Park is Peace Pizzazz. It's a kind of kids-oriented event organized around anti-war and promoting peace. And the Redistricting Reform Town Hall is also going on in Kalamazoo on Saturday at 5. That's at the Second Baptist Church. That's a Redistricting Reform Town Hall. Also going on Monday, May 22nd, Kalamazoo Central High School. There is a protest against the the native mascot. They have a marshal. And on Tuesday, May 23rd, there is going to be a large coordinated protest at the Capitol in Lansing. So I want to thank y'all for joining. Come to us next week for your only source for political revolution. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Keep fighting for that revolution solution.